I'm a descendant of the Yaru people, or specifically the Walman Yaru people of Rubibi, which is sort of the indigenous name for what Broome is at the moment. My mother was born in Derby, which is up from Broome, and my grandmother and my great-grandmother were from the Broome area, and that's where the Yaru people from all that language group are from. So my practice, it evolved, I think, out of wanting to know more about our Indigenous heritage, which was never told to us. I think at the age of 13, Nana showed us images of my great-grandmother and her mother as well. And then that's all we really knew about our family history at that time. My involvement from there was starting to understand what our Indigenous history was, sort of personally, but also starting to see a broader history that I was never told at school. It was something that we were given, I suppose, the conqueror's version of history. The cabinet originally was my grandfather's and grandmother's on my dad's side, and doors don't open properly. But it's sort of things people have given me or I've collected over the time, and it's just some off bits of cars, bits of cameras, or microscopes, and a bit of hardware that looks good that just goes in there sometimes. Auntie, when I was in Broome last time, gave me these dugong bones, and I'll be making her a small sculpture out of that. Nana was, I think, sitting in Grandad's chair that day and brought out the photo album, and she brought out this picture of Mimi and basically said, "Oh, you've got Aboriginal blood." That was the first time, that was the first image, and we knew her as Mimi. Mimi is mother's mother. Initially I was a bit angry that we weren't told, but we were protected from, I think, as I'm starting to learn, we were protected from that side. There's a high level of control. I mean, my great-grandmother wasn't a citizen. You have to give up your connection with Indigenous people and Indigenous culture to be a citizen of Australia. I mean, these people are Australia. I would have really liked to have met her just to have a quick chat or something like that, to sort of see what she was like. So that's Mimi. She had a few different lives going by the sound of it. There's police records of thinking she was holding a gambling house at her place and doing a raid on there but not finding anything. She had one partner who she was cohabitating with. This is sort of in the police records, and he was deported. And the other gentleman that she was cohabitating with at some stage was put in jail. This dynamic there where she was not only controlled, I suppose, by where she could go, but who she could have as partners and who she could see. It probably gives me a little bit more insight into why they might have taken her children away as well. Nana was put in a convent at a relatively early age. The paperwork reads differently. It wasn't sort of taken away as she was just moved to the convent because it's probably better for her there. Part of the family knowing about it, sometimes there might have been shame associated with that. She was a lady, I think, that was under A.O. Neville's control, and he was the Chief Protector of Aboriginals, but his objective, what he saw as the full-blood Aboriginal, as being a dying race, as they will be extinct soon. And the half-caste was neither here nor there. So in his book he had an image of half-caste woman and then a quarter caste and an eighth caste, and showed you the example of going, look how white he looks now, And that was that process of basically breeding out the Aboriginal out of that group of people, so there weren't any Aboriginals left. And if there weren't any more Aboriginals, then they wouldn't have to look after them. That was his method of getting rid of the problem. This is a denial of my great-grandmother's application for citizenship. There's even more reason in the present why the department should exercise control, because the girl mixes with other half-caste girls, of whom there are several in Broome, and her mother, an Aboriginal, has recently been before the court for receiving liquor. I feel confident that the present application is being made in the interest of the Chinese residents of Broome, who are anxious that these girls should be released from the provisions of the Aboriginal Act, so that they, the Chinese, would be free to employ and exploit them. I need scarcely mention what evils may possibly arise if the girls are thus released. I have no hesitation in recommending that the girls remain under the Act. And it's just a list of girls. Yeah, interesting. It's sort of the classifications down the side of sort of their percentage. I don't know. I don't like that idea of being able to class someone by their percentage of one or the other. There was a point that I was angry for understanding those histories, and there was that contradiction and conflict, I think, because I'm a part of both. Well, that part of me is responsible for that, although that part of me was sort of inflicted on family members. I'm not quite sure what happened to her, but I think that was probably a fairly traumatic thing, having your children taken away, and then even when they're old enough, being denied sort of permission to see them. So I think that's where that slow disconnection came from, was that removal from family, and then removal from culture, and then removal from language. In the end, I think she got citizenship. So the case was heard in Broome and the application was granted. Certificate of Citizenship number 62 was issued to her in 1947.